everyone. So today we're going to start with the topic that has plagued the minds of man since the beginning of recorded history, and most likely before that. But we know it has plagued us since the beginning of history, and you can't call it a plague, you can call it a blessing. You can call it a curse, you can call it providence. Either way, this question has been with us for as long as we've written things down, and it is always with us, every single human being, no matter where you start. Assuming that you have any god, spirits, or any idea of a supernatural force that inflicts its will onto us, or that we're a part of, or that created us, and all these questions. We can boil down a lot of these topics to one thing: who is God? So, did you want to start off with that question?
Yeah, sure. I think that's the subject tonight.
Yeah.
Who is God?
Did you have any original ideas about who God is, or?
I think this conversation started by, we were talking about everyone has a different belief, and you feel special about your belief, and then somebody else that had, right? How many different sects and religions are there?
There's a whole bunch of different sects in each religion. A lot of them trying to answer this question based on compartmentalizing the different parts of God, trying to communicate a grander understanding. But when I've been asked this before: who is God? By Christians, by Hindus, by Muslims. I've been asked it by even atheists, even atheist Hindus. There's all kinds of people that have actually asked me this question on YouTube and in real life. My answer is that the idea that who is God is kind of assuming that God is something else, something separate, something above, something that we are not. That he has a singular identity that he is, and he is confined within this identity. We assume that we can understand God by describing this one identity that he is, that we can, or he or she or it, I think it's more accurate to say it, we assume that we'll just say he for the sake of this video, that he is somebody like us, somebody that has a human form, that has certain qualities, has certain preferences for certain peoples, has different things that he will punish you for, has different things that he'll reward you for. Has different human emotions. We ascribe to God all the things that make us us, and everyone ascribes their understanding of who God is to this one identity, and they confine all their beliefs to this one identity, and usually those beliefs are from picked up from childhood, from their parents, from different religions, from influences in their lives. When we truly look at God, we start to understand that God is everything. Myself included. Let's put it this way. So when somebody asks me who is God, I would say that everything is a part of God, but to varying degrees, to varying magnitudes. For instance, like a cup. It's still a part of God. The air around us, still a part of God, but to varying magnitudes based on the degree of consciousness that item or that person or that being has. So we're human beings, so we have a high degree of consciousness, at least at moderate level. A God has much higher degree of consciousness as far as its magnitude, its understanding, its existence, its very frequency of consciousness that's much higher. But there's these varying magnitudes of seemingly inanimate objects and animate objects and sentient beings that are varying magnitudes of God. You can say there's a certain amount of God in each thing, but I think that ascribing certain amounts to things is where we also err. It's very hard for us as human beings to say how much of God a God is. How much, for instance, Divine Mother Kali Ma. It's nearly impossible for me to understand the consciousness of the Divine Mother Kali Ma and ascribe a higher degree of God to that consciousness. But it's easier for me to look down and say, okay, this cup has almost no consciousness, but if we understand that, almost no consciousness, to us, cups do not have any consciousness. But when we understand that consciousness is basically what is behind everything, and it composes everything, that's when we start to understand how God exists in everything. By truly understanding consciousness and understanding that it's a vibration of energy, it is an energy that underlays everything in this universe and all the universes and all dimensions. So who is God? I wouldn't like to answer that question because the question itself assumes too much for me to say that God is this one identity, this one who. Really, all who's are varying degrees of God. Does that make any sense, or do you have any questions about that?
Yeah. So he's not one entity, meaning that God. So, does God have anything special? Does he consider something more special than if God is everywhere and he's...
Once again, we're ascribing human preferences to God. Like, we assume that God likes this more than he likes this. Or that maybe he's angry towards this and not angry towards that. But these are all human emotions and human preferences, human traits that we usually understand people through. We can say, okay, Bob, he's Christian and he doesn't like Hindus, and Bob is very conservative and he has a very solid idea about who he thinks God is, which is Jesus Christ, and only that identity, along with the Holy Spirit, along with the identity that is God the Father. He has these lines that he's placed, and this is who Bob is. What our preferences are is usually how we understand people, ourselves and other people included. So we try to ascribe how we judge other people and view other people to God. We try to make him into a person. But really, I believe that everything's a part of God, so it's impossible to say that original part of the question, who. So it's not a very satisfactory answer. But anyway, do you have any other questions?
So when you're saying preferences, I was trying to follow you on that.
Yeah.
The God, so because of you're making a comparison of what we think, because when we see someone else, right, those characteristics,
yeah,
we try to
say, okay, he's Christian, or he's conservative, and he likes this kind of music. He hates this kind of music. He maybe he hates liberals. Maybe he hates other religions. Maybe he likes other religions. Okay, but he's really focused on his own and thinks that only his own is correct. These are all attributes that we ascribe to people, to human beings with human being limitations, human limitations of understanding, of having to separate things in different categories in order to see their relation. But God doesn't need that understanding process. He simply expands and is. So there isn't this separation, that these lines that human beings like to draw when it comes to how God exists. To even say God sees us would be assuming too much. I would say that basically God is everything, so God kind of is us. He's omnipresent because he's in everything. He is everything. That's why God doesn't need to have physical eyes, because he's already there in every atom that makes up all of existence. He's already in that. So anything that happens or is going to happen, because he understands the relationship between the atoms, is already within the knowledge of God. And the knowledge of God is infinite. So there is no limitations on his knowledge when it comes to time, when it comes to space, when it comes to human emotion or human preferences. Anyway.
Wow.
Is there any other questions you want?
So no, that's those are attributes of God.
Yeah.
And
well, we can say that for the sake of understanding in this video, we can say yes. But
who's God? Well, he's someone that understands the relationships of physics and atoms, and
he created the foundation of reality, the fabric. So, and ultimately everything's a part of him. But in order to understand God, I understand that we kind of have to separate these things to understand the relationship, because we are inhibited by human understanding, human limitations. So we can say, for the sake of this video and for the sake of understanding God, that God understands everything. He understands the relationship of time, space, and what will happen and what has happened in its complete and pure form, and what is happening completely in its pure, undifferentiated, unprejudiced form.
Do you think God likes mathematics?
I don't think the word likes I would put in there, but I think that there's a certain math behind what God does. I would say it's more behind the action of his expansion than it is something that he's like, oh, I like mathematics, but I hate history. Like, I think it's more how he expands. Is he basically is expanding in a mathematical way, based on the way he has chosen to expand. So I think that in a way God does like mathematics, but I think that, once again, the word like I wouldn't add in there. But
so the action of expanding, Is that
God's relation to mathematics is the action by which he expands. And then that's why we can understand the universe through mathematics, because it is the underlying action. We only understand a piece of mathematics, by the way. We don't understand it completely, because we haven't worked our way into revealing to ourselves, in a way, what God has done and is doing and will do, and basically it always is. But anyway, I think that we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up there. This has been an interesting question and topic in general, and I hope that we kind of gave you a little bit to work off of my understanding and what Frank's been wondering about as well. And I will try to answer any comments that you put in the comment section below. Feel free to ask any questions, and I'll do my best to answer them all. There's been a lot of comments recently. I try to respond to them all. But do not forget to support me on Patreon. I have a Patreon account now, and I'll go ahead and include that link, that at least the site where you can find me. It'll be patreon.com/darkrealist. Capital E, capital R, no space. So type that in, you'll find my Patreon account, and you can pledge as little as $1 a month. If you want to give me more, that would be great, but I would love some support on Patreon. I would love to get be able to produce better content for you by making a little bit of money off of what I do. And also, I will be including in the Patreon videos, in the Patreon stream rather, videos that I do not include on YouTube. So I will be doing some more personal videos that I will include on Patreon and not on YouTube. So if you want access to that, feel free to go to that site and support me. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see all of you in the future.